We're live. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the meeting to order for the Upson County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, May 25th. If you would at this time, please rise for our invocation, followed by our pledge. If you join me. Heavenly Father, we ask that you're with us here tonight. You bless this community and you bless those that serve this community, and that the business that this board does tonight is pleasing to you. Father, we come to you as we end the school year, and we ask that you bless the students that are graduating and getting ready to move on in the next phase of their life. We ask that you bless those families that we were paused to remember this weekend as in observance of Memorial Day. These things we ask in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I still understood. Thank you. Okay. First on the agenda are public comments. Do we have any? We do not have any. Moving along, our consent agenda. On our consent for this evening, we have our May 5th work session meeting minutes, our May 11th regular meeting minutes, acceptance of our April 2021 financials, and the approval of a resolution 07-2021 to submit a Cdbg grant for the Thurston Well Replacement Project. Is there a motion on the consent?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question before we make a motion.
Sure.
Due to the fact that I was only here for half the 5/11 meeting, how should
I noted in the minutes that when you left.
Okay.
So every other part of the minute says that you were no longer in attendance.
Okay.
And I wasn't here for the work session.
It's noted.
So, comfortable just approving the consent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll offer a motion to approve the consent.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Ms. Jones?
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay, new business. Presentation by Bobby Cunningham. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was missing a G on that. With GFL Environmental.
Mr. Chairman, before he comes up, I had the opportunity to meet Bobby about a week and a half ago. We had a good conversation. He's new to our region as far as GFL leadership. Our beloved Billy is leaving us for another region, so we'd like to welcome Mr. Cunningham. I will tell you, he's a retired professional hockey player. So
Long retired.
From Georgia?
Long retired.
From Georgia?
No, I grew up in Canada.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it would really be unique if you were a professional hockey player from Georgia.
So anyway, it's been great to get to know him, but I just wanted to give you some background.
Okay. So, you have something for us, or?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
I just wanted to come this evening. Hello, everyone. My name is Bobby Cunningham. Been with GFL for a year and a half. I came from the Stockbridge branch. Due to Billy being promoted and moved to our Warner Robins branch, they have sent me down here to take over her duties with the Thomaston branch. I've only been here about 3 weeks. We've discussed at length some of the service issues that have been going on in Upson County. I've spoken with Dwayne Isaac, who's the general manager of Stockbridge, who's acting general manager, I guess, over Thomaston. And we're working on making significant changes as far as the maintenance of the vehicles. Dwayne has approved to overstaff the branch. We still have to find people and hire them, but he's not limiting us to just the amount of drivers we need. So if we do have a situation where a driver doesn't come to work, driver gets sick, driver gets hurt, whatever the case is, we got somebody we can plug and play, and that way we're not falling behind on anything. He's also provided us with a couple of spare vehicles from the Stockbridge branch. I know a lot of the issues over the last 7 or 8 weeks have stemmed from vehicle issues, where a route was either well behind or didn't get picked up on the correct day. And we're doing everything we can right now to rectify that. I'm not telling you after being here for 3 weeks that, you know, this week everything's going to be perfect or next week everything's going to be perfect. But we're trying to take strides to get to a point where nobody in this room's phone's ringing every day about trash issues. You guys have enough stuff to deal with in the county where the last thing you want to hear from is a citizen whose trash wasn't picked up or wasn't picked up on the right day. So we're working our way towards making sure that no longer happens. And, you know, I just ask that you be patient. I'm not telling you it's going to take 6 months, 8 months, or a year, but it's not going to be done overnight. We just got to get the manpower in place, the vehicles in the proper running condition, get the right vehicles doing the right things, and I assure you we're going to get the service issues taken care of.
Anybody have any questions? Comments?
No, welcome.
Thank you.
I hope me and you don't have to, I hadn't had to have many conversations, but I have had a lot of conversations about trash, but I will just say this, just as riding the road, and this isn't an issue, this is a communication issue we got to address. Just today I passed a trash can, it's overflowing. Some of it's in bags, some of it's not. And then beside the trash can, there's this big pile of stuff, and I'm thinking, that's not going to get picked up. And then they're going to call tomorrow and want to know what to say. Well, my trash didn't all get picked up. I think it's going to have to be a continuous effort to encourage people that you got to bag your trash. And paying for what fits in the can. If you got more than that, you need to go out to the place. Because what happens is people call me and say, well, the trash truck just dropped trash at my house. I said, did you bag your trash? Well, no, I didn't bag my trash, but they're getting litter up and down the road. Well, that's why they're getting litter up and down the road. It's because trash isn't bagged. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I had never thrown some type of political flyer or some type of car warranty thing straight in the trash can when I got home and didn't put it in the bag. But since I've been pressing this litter issue, that's one of the things. And we have done some stuff. We have sent some stuff out in the bills, but those bills go out quarterly. And typically I don't think anything about it till it comes and I got to pay it again. We got to somehow promote that trash can placement, because we're contracting with them to pick it up, and we got the rules, and we're gonna have to enforce the rules about it being bagged. Because I'm sure the driver could sit there and take a log of everybody that's got trash, but I'm not sure that's part of our contract to do that. I guess what I'm saying is if they miss the trash, it's their fault. If the truck didn't make it that day, but if litter's falling on the road, we gotta communicate that to our citizens. And if it's not, and if it's more than it goes in the trash can, they got a choice. They can load it up and they can take it out to the dump and dump it for free. They'll probably have to put on a hard hat, I think, right?
We have those.
but or either they're gonna have to keep it till the next week, or they're gonna have to get another can.
There are a couple options. They can call it in if there's anything outside their can. They can call it in. They get 1 bulk pickup a month, so they can call it in. A lot of people don't know that. There are a lot of people that do know it, but a lot of people don't know that, and we tell them as much as we can. But they can get a bulk pickup once a month for free, and that comes with it if they just call it in.
Right.
So, and then also, a lot of people don't know that they can dump for free out there. I mean, you tell them, and some people will say, well, I pay y'all to pick it up. I pay y'all to pick it up. But they don't realize that if they have used their bulk, they can still come out there and dump free, and a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
And we do put it in the newspaper quarterly, but then not everyone gets the newspaper, the Upson Beacon. So, and we're not allowed to post on social media. It's a corporate thing. They don't want us posting on social media. So, I mean, you guys can, and I've sent a cart placement, a letter, the same thing that I sent for the newspaper. It has all of our Saturday dates, because we're open one Saturday a month. And I've sent that to Belinda, and I think they've even sent that out in the bills as well. So I think maybe social media is the answer. If you guys can do that, I can send y'all what to put out there. We just can't do it from GFL.
So are y'all caught up on bulk? I mean, for a while there, I
Yes.
know we were, so we are. I mean,
Yes, sir.
but we don't want folks to, okay, I'm gonna schedule a bulk pickup and then go put the stuff out there
Right.
before they call, because
Right.
you may not get it that week. You said you get it, will you get it that week if they call that week?
Right, we'll get it, typically if they call before Thursday, we get it.
Okay.
Unless it's already full. We've even been working on some Saturdays too. So if it gets so full where we can't get it by Friday or Saturday, we cut it off.
So if we see something out there on Saturday, Sunday,
Mhm.
that is somebody that put stuff out by the road and didn't call.
Right.
In some
And-
cases.
Right.
So I just think that, and it's like Commissioner Ellis said, I mean, we have a responsibility, and we have a code enforcement officer, and, you know, I'm sure you've had a relationship
Oh, yeah.
with him, and
Yes.
just maintain that relationship with our code enforcement officer, because I know that we and Jason would much rather you guys deal with it there than us getting the calls, and because he gets, I don't call code enforcement, I call him when I'm riding down the road, and then I see something on the side of the road that's been there for a while, and then he sends our guy out.
I actually spoke with Bobby today.
No, it's Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy?
That's, yeah, it's two different
Okay.
for this.
City, county,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I know y'all have different service arrangements with the city,
Mhm.
so, but
But
yeah.
you haven't met Jeremy, because Jeremy typically will call, well, you'll talk to Jeremy, and Jeremy will talk to Belinda, and Belinda will call me. So we don't, unless something's really bad or he comes out there, then we don't really talk to Jeremy that much,
Okay,
because he talks to Belinda and she talks to us.
okay.
I'd just like to say one last thing I'm through. Y'all have been very accommodating
Thank
when
you.
I've had to
Thank you.
to get involved. Y'all have been, I appreciate it.
We try.
Yeah,
It can be tough, but we try.
and that was gonna be my last thing. Thank you for what
Thank
you've done.
you.
I mean, you have been very accommodating, and I know it's at times it's tried your patience, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. You guys too. I mean,
I have
y'all
no
get it
question.
worse than us.
Sure.
You mentioned the manpower. Are you having a lot of troubles and turnover with manpower right now, or is it?
It is the worst I've ever seen. The worst. We actually just had somebody quit, no show, just drop off the face of the earth. Haven't heard from them since.
The issue's kind of twofold. I come from Stockbridge where we have 3, 4, 5 extra drivers.
Yeah.
So if something goes on, somebody quits, somebody leaves, that buys us time to train somebody else. Since I've been here in the last 3 weeks, we've had 2 people quit. And it just, since Dwayne gave the approval to hire extra people, we're just having a hard time finding.
Yeah.
So now the extra people that we did find are now gonna replace the 2 that left, so now we gotta go back and find more extra people. And I think that's just everywhere, is having a hard time hiring, and I don't think the turnover rate, once we get the spots filled, is gonna be
That's
too
where,
bad.
yeah, that's what I was getting at. Because obviously, manpower, hiring people right now is tough, but turnover rate's a lot different because that could be some,
Yeah.
you know, internal things. So.
I think it's getting them in the door.
Yeah, our
Just like you
turnover
said.
rate is actually relatively low.
Getting them in the door, I think that the applicants that we're getting, they're just filling out applications to keep
Mhm.
their services. And we'll call them over and over again, hey, what about that interview? And, oh, I forgot, I'll be there at 3. And then you,
I used to work
It's
at
the worst.
I used to work at a sheriff's office in between my hockey career and this, but we had a big problem there where people would apply just to show that they would apply at a job to keep their unemployment.
Yeah.
And I think we're running into a lot of that now where people are, hey, yeah, I'll come to do the interview, and then they don't show up. And you call them and you're like, oh, I forgot, I'll be there tomorrow, and they don't show up. And you can only chase for so long.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what we don't want to do is we don't want to hire a bunch of stopgaps that are going to leave in 3 months, 2 months, a month, and we start back to square one. So we're trying to find people that want to work, people that want to go out there and do the job. And I think once we can solidify those positions and we have that bench strength where if something does go sideways and we need somebody, then everything will just fall into place and there shouldn't be any issues as far as that goes.
So if you know anybody who has a CDL.
We got issues of our own.
You're gonna
Is there anybody that can swim?
I'm trying to hire them already.
If they can swim, we're looking for lifeguards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you don't even swim, yeah. Anyway, send them to sea.
Yeah.
Jason, well, welcome. Really take care. Don't be a stranger.
Oh, I won't. No.
I don't think you will be. Okay. All right, we'll move along. Y'all are more than welcome to stay, but.
And you sure it's a promotion to move to Warner Road?
Sir?
I said, you sure it's a promotion to move to Warner Road?
No, yes, it is. It really is.
He's going back home.
I
Oh,
live there. And so I've been, yes, yes.
That's good.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, discussion and approve of the fiscal year 2022 Three Rivers Regional Agreement. So Jason, you want to kind of summarize? This is the yearly annual transit
Yes.
agreement.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is the annual renewal. But this time, for the first time, I want to really commend the Regional Commission staff. They sent me a really wonderful summary of the changes, which actually saved me about 30 or 40 minutes worth of work. I'll go over some of those changes with you, and their summary is attached. So some of the changes or the differences are as follows. The previous contract contained language requiring the county to procure automobile liability insurance. That language has been deleted. Interestingly enough, they use the same insurer that we do. So, we had discovered, and I think thanks in large part to our broker, that we were double covered on this contract. So that actually proved to be a savings to us last year when we were able to drop that. He also notes that references to Department of Human Services have been added, that they operate the transit program according to the guidelines and policies set forth by GDOT and DHS. Language has been added to clarify the process of bus replacements. The county understands the typical useful life of a transit bus is approximately 5 years, and that the county will support the Regional Commission's 5311, that's just referring to the federal code that governs this type of rural transit. Application for GDOT vehicle replacements, including the provision required by the local match. So we do get funding from most of that, but not entirely. They added that language, which is simply the way we've been operating anyway. They're not changing the fares for the service area. The service areas and fares vary on a variety of issues. Service areas and fare information would be now contained in the attachment. The local funding requirements still remain the same going back to 2019. So no change in the funding. So those are the basic changes. Not a lot's changed in the contract from year to year. And again, just wanted to publicly thank the Regional Commission staff for doing a good job summarizing what the changes were.
Pass that on.
I know you serve as their chairman as well.
Okay. So, all right. Is there a motion related to this renewal?
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Chairman Evans?
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda is the discussion and approval of engineering firm for the Cdbg.
Mr. Chairman, what you have is essentially an identical general services agreement from EMC that we're currently operating under. To give you some background as to why we had to do this separately, procurement of engineering services is a requirement of the Cdbg process. We had intended to try to use the existing contract, but after some research, Ms. Brantley, who is our grant writer with the Regional Commission, determined that the procurement efforts that we did to get EMC Engineering Services on board as a team member the first time had been too long. So it had been more than 2 years, so we weren't able to use that procurement method. So we had to go back out and issue a new RFP specifically just for the Cdbg submission. So with that, Alan and his staff went through a procurement process, and he's prepared to present to you the findings of that if the board would entertain hearing from the finance director.
Always. That's this right here, right?
Yes, sir, it actually is. We actually had to send out 10 direct RFPs. Those engineering firms were given to us by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. None of those firms, except one, responded, and the one responded that they did not choose to submit an RFP. We did go about our normal procurement process in soliciting through requests for proposal on our usual platforms with our local paper and through the Georgia Procurement Registry. We had 4 firms to respond. One was which, of course, EMC Engineering Services, Turnip Seed Engineering, Hofstadter and Associates, and Falcon Design Corporation. And so I assembled a small committee of myself and Ms. Jones and Garrett Norton, all the folks that were familiar with this process, and we evaluated all of the RFPs submitted to us and ranked them based, on a scoring methodology. EMC actually scored higher than the other 3 submissions, with a total of 11 points. And basically overall, based on their qualifications and the references that they included, which also included some direct letters, I believe, from some of the folks that they've done work for before, we felt like they were the best firm to take on this particular project.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Jason, anything else to add?
So as part of the packet, you have the rankings in which EMC received the highest ranking, and you also have the contract, which is identical to the contract we're under now, except for if you look at attachment A, they're proposing a fee of 12% of construction costs, or $58,671.36, whichever is greater. So with that approval of the exception as them, we would also need an authorization to execute the contract for that amount.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The only thing that I'm not seeing on here is the bid from the other engineering firms.
Oh, right, we can provide those to you. We have all of them.
Was there significant differences?
No, probably, I think Falcon may have been probably the lowest in terms of percentages. There were some caveats to that. Most of them range from 9 to 12% of total construction costs.
Any other questions? Okay, so you have staff recommendations. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve.
Approve the, as recommended by staff?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is seconded to approve the staff's recommendation for EMC Engineering to be engineers for the Cdbg project. Hearing no other discussion, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
No.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay. Discussion and approval of construction delivery methods for Judicial Center project. Jason.
All right, Mr. Chairman, so we just wanted to add this as a discussion item and a potential recommendation. So as many people know, one of the projects that we're looking to the voters to consider funding through a special local option sales tax is the construction of a judicial facility. Obviously, that is a very large undertaking, and just trying to make sure that we meet or exceed all the necessary timelines. It would be my recommendation that we at least issue an RFP, and I'll get to the specific recommendation of the RFP in a minute, that we begin to try to assemble the members of this team that if and when this board decides to approve that project and the funding is provided for through the referendum, we would be able to ready to go to construction. And we would also need a lot of pre-construction services, renderings and things that would help us with messaging as we're talking to our friends, we're talking to our colleagues, everyone in the local community, talking to our civic groups where we could utilize some of the information from the pre-construction activities like renderings and other things to share information with the public. So it's my thought that we really should go ahead and get a few solicitations out, or at least one, so we can begin to vet different firms for different professional services, and we can begin to build a team as we also decide what the language of the referendum is going to be. It's basically, we're just trying to do these things in conjunction with each other so we don't fall behind. I took a refresher course on construction methods last week. I do have some experience with multiple of these methods, and I do have some experience serving in an administration that constructed a new judicial facility, so I have my own preferences as to which one we should pursue. I also know that Commissioner Watson actually performs this for a living, so has a lot more experience than I do, and he and I had a fairly lengthy phone conversation about which one of these methods we prefer. I think we both came up with the same result, in that we definitely, for a project of this type, would prefer what is called a construction manager at risk method of delivering this project. And I would certainly defer to Commissioner Watson for any details that and advantages, disadvantages, but for the sole purpose of the reason I like this method is because it can be the most inclusive for local firms, and it gives the owner, which is the county, a lot of control and say-so over designs, changes. So with this construction method, we would essentially issue an RFP for professional services to look for a general contractor, and that contractor would be the lead team member, and all of the subsequent functions would follow under that GC. So we would choose a GC based on qualifications, and that GC would then put different bid packages together as the project went out, versus the other method, which I have experience with, which is a design bid build, where you would just hire an architect to design a building, and then you would put specs on that building together and then issue a request for sealed bids for one GC to do the whole project. In my opinion, for a community project like this, and you want to get the most buy-in and the most ability for people to be part of it, especially the local economy, you have less control over that, because you're really just looking at a low bid. So you'll bid it to a contractor, and then they're going to have most of the control as who their subs are, who serves those main functions. And I can see Commissioner Watson's like, all right, he's butchering this on the here, but
No, I think it's great, and if y'all haven't had a chance, what Jason sent over is really good detail, breaking out the different styles of project deliveries. And in today's world, I mean, different contractors, developers. This is your generic kind of setups, but there's blends, there's hybrids, there's all kinds of different ways you can put, you know, these structures together. The CM at risk, I would agree with Jason. I mean, that's my recent experiences in that model. I like it because everybody's collaborating on the front end. So your contractor can really help you with value engineering. So you're not stuck with a certain design and then your contractor puts in a number and then you're having a lot of changes after the fact, which that's what I see tending to happen in the design bid build process. I've been a part of the construction manager at risk, the design bid build process, and the design build. The independent project delivery, that's a new one for me. I think that's more for your very large projects, maybe like, you know, the Brave Stadium, where your big ticket subcontractors need to be a part of the team early on. But yeah, I would agree. The CM at risk to me would be the preferred method for how we would pursue the Judicial Center.
And Mr. Chairman, I would add, there's no risk. So we could, we're not asking them, we're asking for their qualifications. So.
Well, typically you'll select them off of, in this model, you'll select them off of qualifications, their fee, and their GCs, their general conditions. So no matter what the overall cost are, you've locked in the GC's cost. So you're selecting them based off of what their percentage fee and their GC numbers are.
Anybody have any questions?
I would add one more. My experience is that if you have preferred partners, and I'll just use examples of contractors that we're using now that we're having a lot of success with, like SRS Roofing. So it enables us to say, hey, we've had a lot of success with this company called SRS. We want to make sure that you consider them and make sure that they're eligible to be able to bid on this. So they will put the bid package, the smaller bid packages together to make sure that firms like that would be able to have a chance to do the project.
Who
Or
makes the decision on that awarding that bid?
right here.
Yep. Us as owners.
Mhm.
So as I was mentioned to a few of you before, typically you would have, we could require the contractor to do all sorts of things, but my suggestion would be, like I mentioned to some of you, is require each scope to, you know, have a local subcontractor put a bid in. So that would at least open it up to the public. And then, yes, they would come to us and potentially have for each scope a bid tabulation sheet, which would show all the pricing. So before they locked in their, you know, subcontractor, I mean, we could have a say in it, or potentially, you know, that would be what Jason would be tasked to do. But it gives us a level of, you know, input on the lower level scope of work.
Input you might not have in another method.
Well, what is the fallback to that now? If we choose, we have basically a general contract and we're choosing, and then we choose the people that's gonna work for him, how are we gonna be able to hold him accountable when we're choosing the people that's gonna be on his project? You know, time frame. Well, I had a delay because you guys chose him. How are we gonna be able to hold that general contract accountable? And I'm sure there's a way. I'm just that's the first thing that comes to mind. I mean,
Well, they'd all be bidding under the same contract requirement. So, which I mean, they would have to be able to perform the function as the team has put it out in the spec. So, it's a fair question, but they're still going to be responsible to perform exactly the same task. So, in other words, they wouldn't be given any special consideration to do something less only because they were local or because they were a preferred vendor. Yeah.
well, if we have you know, something that doesn't get per se that you know, time delay or et cetera, I mean, where's the teeth for that general contractor then at that point? How does he hold that?
He's going to secure the contractor with a subcontract. But a lot of this stuff, potentially when you're going through the bid tabulation sheets and you're talking about the subcontractors for different scopes, yeah, I mean, if you as an owner force somebody to the table and they make you aware of issues, so a lot of times, yeah, I'll be sitting in a room with my contractor and we may be looking at electrical packages and they may say, this guy we had issues with 2 jobs ago. And that's something I have to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, if I ultimately want them, I can select them. But your GC is going to give you a, you know, hey, here's the issues we've had. You're more than welcome to choose them. but just FYI. But at the end of the day, they have to sign the subcontractor is going to be signing a contract with the GC.
Not with them.
Yeah, not with us. So it's the GC's job to hold them to whatever schedule, whatever cost that is submitted.
I've got I guess my question is more backing up a higher level view of this process. So here we are. I guess step me through how we're getting from dirt. When do we do renderings? So when do we hire someone to do these renderings, or get someone to do this stuff for us? When does that? When do these other team members come on board? If this is the first one we need, but before you get this guy, don't you need some idea of what you're doing or what you're looking at, or just a general idea that, hey, it's a 50,000 square foot building and for this purpose?
So I would say, and you may have a different experience with it, but I would say that one of the advantages of this delivery method is that as soon as, and there's going to be some major players in the GC world that are interested, and they've already been emailing us, probably emailing Alan too, saying we're interested, and we're saying, hold on, we don't have a solicitation out there, we're not going to meet with anybody, but they have architects, engineers that all also want to have an opportunity to do this. So a lot of what we would pay for on the design bid build would be done gratis under this work, and they're gonna have preferred partners that they have, and they're like, hey, my client needs a rendering of the following based on the site plan they did with Precision Planning, and they can start churning it out without us having to go necessarily procure every single service. And more than likely, in my experience, that's done without charge.
Yeah, so early on, this would be a blend of CM at risk and design build, because potentially in that method, if we're going to go out and get a GC and utilize their contacts with architects to provide renderings or whatnot, they're managing the design team, meaning getting them to provide renderings. We would tell them, what we're looking for. But typically, like in the CM at risk, the traditional model, the owner would potentially have an RFP for design team and an RFP for your GCs. And what that allows you to do during that whole schematic phase, while you're getting renderings, your GC is able to provide cost modeling. So you're having the person that you're going to go to contract with provide input on the cost side of things. Where in the design bid process, your architect is drawing on paper what they want. And I mean, everybody knows that you can draw a lot of things on paper that you can't really build out in the field. So I personally like having that GC input early on, and they can provide value engineering.
So getting to the timeline for this process, for the splosh and all that. So here we are. We're going to hire a GC. We go through this RFP. We'll hire a GC well before we even know if the splosh is going to be approved. So that's the question that I want to know is, we talked a little bit about the language, and I don't know if you're prepared to even get into this discussion at all, but
sure,
we're getting. Are we getting the horse before the cart?
I would
and
say
I'm putting it out to the group.
I got the same question.
I would say we don't.
Definitely have that same question.
And my response to that would be, the more information I think we bring about what project we're delivering, I think the better our success is getting our message to the voters to have it approved. So we'll be able to do that, because in some form or fashion, we're going to have to engage somebody to look at a site and say, we would probably situate it this way, you would probably be this many stories, this is what the layout would be like, this is potentially what it would look like from this road, it might look like this from this road. And that, to me, that's all something that would help a voter understand what the overall project.
Well, that's the question I have for the board is, okay, so we've gone out and we started work on property, we started doing all this stuff, and we actually, we really need to get moving on some due diligence. are we gonna do this or not? You know, Commissioner Jones said at the last meeting, are we gonna kick the can down the road, or are we gonna pick up the can and be done with this? You know, and I've had this conversation with Jason a couple of times, you know, what do we want the vote, you know, what do we need the voters to decide? Do we need the voters to decide on how you're gonna pay for something that we're gonna do? Or are we gonna ask the voters to decide on whether we're gonna do it? That's the question I have. If we're gonna decide, if we're gonna let the voters decide on whether to do this or not, then I'm of the opinion we need to hit the brakes. But, you know, if we're gonna say, we've identified, we have not. The problem's been identified, it's been presented to this board multiple times over, Mr. English, you can help me, decades. Are we gonna do this? You know, is this a, you know, we're responsible for providing for the public safety. You know, and if you ask me for my opinion, and I'm gonna tell it, I'll just give you my opinion first. Look, we're responsible for providing for public safety needs of the community. If you look at our budget, most of our budget goes to public safety. You know, or do we move, or do we hit the brakes? I say we move and get this going. And then the referendum that the voters are going to vote on is, do you pay for it with a bond, or do you pay for it on the digest? That's just my opinion. I know y'all don't agree with me. Some of you don't, I know. So
I don't.
I just think we have that discussion. Are we going to do this? Because if we're not willing to take, you know, this is a need, this is not a want. We've been talking about this for 3-4 years, you know, for most of us on this board. You know, politics ain't got nothing to do with this, in my opinion. So I say, if we're going to ask the voters to decide on whether or not to do it, okay, and then how do we, you know, and Jason, I know you give us some of your thoughts on the question. You've had some discussion with our financial advisors as to the question that would be on the referendum.
So you have, it's basically two basic options. So you have, I mean, let's look at our T-SPLOS. Our T-SPLOS was 2 questions. So do you authorize the levy of a tax for these purposes? Right, and one of those was road resurfacing, but there was a lot of other stuff in there that the voters approved that we could potentially use the money for. And do you also approve the issuance of a general obligation bond of this amount, and which enabled us to get started right away when the voters approved it? So you could pose the question like that for this project. You could say, of course, you know, SPLOST is, I think the most important thing to say is SPLOST is way more than just a building. I mean, it's everything to us. It's vehicles, it's equipment, it's asphalt.
It's our whole capital improvement.
Almost entirely. It's IT infrastructure. It's so
more than,
and it's so much more. Water, sewer infrastructure. Everything is in SPLOST. So you would have a couple of options, just like the T-SPLOST. Do you approve the following projects, and then the Judicial Center could be in that list of projects, and that could be just the one question, right? So you could utilize some of the funding for this project, right? And you can, you know, there's a number of ways that this county can enter into debt obligation. That you could also ask the second part of the question, like we did T-SPLOST. Do you authorize us to do 6 years of 20-year or 7 years of, 6 years of 20-year debt service for the purposes of paying that bond for a judicial center? But you may want to borrow money to replace a bridge, build a judicial center. I mean, there's a number of ways. So you could have a 2-part question that says, do you authorize the projects, and do you also authorize this debt? Or you can just have everything in the project, and you can, if you have the need to do a building, we have an office building authority that we can issue debt through. We can't build bridges with that, but we can do a judicial center with that.
And the purpose of the OBA is exactly for projects just like this.
Right. And historically, that's how this come in. The Civic Center is a good example. That's how we got the Civic Center. It was financed through the Office Building Authority. when we do major construction projects, the city and the county
So when
utilize
you
that.
ask a two-part question, there's three possible outcomes. Well, I mean, statistically, yeah, there's three possible outcomes. No, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Well, remember, it's only one vote,
yes.
even if it's two questions.
That's right.
So say if I'm a voter and I walk in and I'm all for the projects, but I disagree with the debt, so I'm just going to vote no because it's and then everything.
So
fails.
then there goes our splosh.
If I'm
The
if
majority.
I'm a voter and concentrated on the debt, but I agree with everything else, sure. It's always it's a more of a complicated question. It requires voters to be very informed. But I feel like this community did a good job explaining because we had a two-part question for T-SPLOS and people supported it overwhelmingly. So I'm not necessarily worried about that at all, and I'm sure you all aren't either. But the debt doesn't necessarily have to be on the question.
Right, I just want I just want the public to know what they're voting for. I just don't want it to pay bond debt down here, and then all of a sudden we have this outcry from the community going, well, we didn't agree to this, we didn't. I mean, transparency, just be transparent.
I don't know how more transparent we can be right this minute, right now.
Right, I agree,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I thought we were all in the same boat of this is a need, we were moving forward on the need.
I think it's a need, but I also think that as representatives of the public, we have to, if we're gonna put something out there to the public, to let them make the decision.
Well, and so we're in agreement that it's a need, but now, I mean, all we're talking about is wording on a referendum.
Right,
Okay.
that's for my.
Okay, well, I mean, that's to be determined. I mean, we hadn't gotten there yet. But I think, I mean, I'm under the impression that we're moving forward with a potential project. I mean, geez, we've been doing a
But
lot of due diligence and a lot of.
I'm the voter out there that hasn't been involved in this process for the last 5 years, roughly, and I don't really understand, the mechanics of how all this works. And I'm sitting here, and the first thing I want to know is, why do I even need this thing? Well, they didn't watch last week's, 2 weeks ago's meeting, or they haven't been involved in some of this stuff. So,
Well, I think we could go about, I mean, yes, we could establish this RFP, get a contractor on board to potentially get some of these services, on the come. Or, I mean, I think we need something more than just saying we're going to do a core facility. I think we need to have schematics. We need to have.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're really not out anything. I mean, because having our team together, nobody gets paid unless the project gets done.
So that was going to be my next
Yeah.
question. So the GC, they come on board, they do all this stuff, and then the vote is no to the splash.
Well, they get paid a percentage of the project. That's what their
So the project didn't happen.
project is not. Yeah.
Let's see, by the time we bring somebody on, we're 5 months of work.
You'd have to word that in the RFP the correct way, and you're going to get different GCs submit for it because you're going to have some that are more
Are you
willing
going
to
to
take
get,
that
are you going to
risk.
get more viable GCs though if they know they're bidding on a project that's approved and it's going to happen?
Well,
You're going to get more competition.
I think that, Mr. Chairman, I think the fair way to say that would be, it may not happen, because just because a funding source is not available doesn't mean you still can't do the project. There are other funding sources available.
Such as?
Millage rate, debt, combination of millage rate and debt, combination of millage rate, debt,
Well, I'd
and
ask
fund
this board
balance.
here, so if the splosh is no, would you turn around 2 weeks later and say, okay, we have this need, so now we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna send this over to the OBA, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna build this project out, and we're gonna raise millage rate by 2 mils roughly to cover the bond, the debt.
Better question.
Huh?
If we put it on the ballot and the people vote no for it, they've already told you what they thought, and we
But-
represent the people.
But ultimately, that's up to y'all to decide. Doesn't mean you don't.
Yeah, I think-
Doesn't mean doesn't mean the project. Doesn't mean you can't do the project. It just means the
Right.
voters have decided not to authorize you to use that funding source.
Would it be a wise choice
But
if
it-
the,
but-
if
but-
the taxpayer says, no, I don't want it, and then you turn right around and come back up here and go.
Well, then my question then is to the people that are lined up in the back of the room and have been sending letters to this board for the last 2 decades saying, we need this to do this. So then you say, okay, we're not gonna do it, so So the risk then becomes, okay, but we wait for something to happen and we got the lawyers that show up ready to sue us, or we have cases overturned because juries are compromised. I mean, we heard the need. And I guess, and look, and I want y'all to understand something, especially want people that hopefully watching understand. Look, I'm not going to be the standard bearer. I'm not going to be the flag bearer for this. I'm just saying that I think that we're on a path that I thought we were moving to get this done, and I am getting the impression from conversations that we may not do this. So if we're, I want to know, is this board committed to doing this come, I won't say what term comes to my mind, are we committed to doing this? Like Commissioner Jones said at the last meeting, are we going to pick the can up or are we going to kick the can down the road? I thought you were good with getting this done.
I'm ready.
I want to know the rest of you. You ready to do this?
Yeah, I don't know why we're backing up and I didn't know there was a concern of halting.
Well, my concern is that we're gonna put it on the SPLOST referendum, and it just says bond debt. It doesn't say what it's for, it just says.
I would say no. I would say we would clearly state what it's for.
All right, and then, and if it goes out and the majority of the people say no to it at that point,
Then it's,
or you say come
People's
back,
vote.
let's come back and.
I think we reassess that. I mean, there's still a need. The outcome may be different at that point because of how it's going to be funded, because you may not be able to accomplish everything you wanted to accomplish at that point. I mean, too many unknowns to me in that scenario. We would have to address it at that time.
Like I said, I think there's a need, but I think there's also a need to let the public know what you're voting for. That's my point here.
Well, so what they're voting for is
Bond debt.
bond debt
We
for
gotta-
the construction of a court facility.
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta make sure that we word it so they will understand what we're trying to do. And if we put the on the ballot and they disapprove it, then we need to come back and reassess whether we want to go on a millage rate increase. I'm not so sure that I will be in favor of that right now, but there will be something we would need to take a look at.
We'd have to, it'd be a whole nother assessment at that point.
Right, we have to do a whole nother assessment.
Yeah. We can't decide that right now.
Right, we can't, not right now.
But I think we gotta take it step by step. I thought, working in the right step, and I think that's more the reason to potentially have somebody on board to help us what are they voting for? We gotta know what it's gonna look like, potentially where's it going.
I think we've all had those conversations just about every day of the week since this has hit the streets. I had somebody sitting down, what are you building? How much is it gonna cost? What's it gonna cost me? Why do you need it? You just want nice offices for people to work in. We don't need this thing. That's some of the stuff that you hear out there.
I think we all understand that the real need, we do need it. But we gotta figure out.
Well,
How we get there.
I know that, I think most of us, I would like to say, I think we all do understand the need. And especially you and I, when we went up and did the facility tour there in Barrow and Winder, and that was a very, a very good presentation that our principals that, were elected and appointed and served the public safety of this community stood back here in that room. They said the other day, and I know the paper had to cut a lot of it out, so when people have come up to me in the last 2 weeks and said, what do you do and what are you thinking about this? And I said, have you watched the meeting? Have you listened to Judge Sams? Did you hear Sheriff Kilgore? Have you called, District Attorney Broder? Those are the folks that have got to take the bull by the horn and help educate the public. It's not incumbent upon us to educate the public so much. We had that conversation earlier. In fact, we're on thin ice when we get out here and start trying to educate the public, because we can't cross that line on advertising for a SPLOST referendum. But we can provide the information on what it is they're buying. Other folks in the community can advocate for it, and I'm not going to advocate for it. I do see the need. When it really resonated with me the other day when he sat back there, he's got 5 in jail right now for homicide. And we had a homicide in this community this past weekend. We had a jury deliberation, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it. We had the former chief judge over here is gonna really roll his eyes on this one. We had jury deliberation in the Chamber of Commerce meeting room the other day, yesterday. They're going across the street and using that so they could get that jury over there deliberating and start impaneling another jury because we have one courtroom. So, that ain't right, is it? So, anyway, he's not.
At the end of the day, nobody operates
Yeah.
the business the same way they did in the 50s.
Can I say something? Because we just covered a whole lot of ground
We did.
right here.
And we need to have this conversation.
Probably was, some of it was probably just talk, but ultimately, this is what I'm looking at. Do I think we have a need? Yes. As a commissioner, I think we have a need. My issue is in our last public meeting that we had, at the joint meetings, we listed out what was gonna be on the ballot. My issue is, it just says bond debt. I want to be transparent with the public so they know.
That was just
what they're getting.
It's not
wording on
final,
a
right?
spreadsheet.
Well, don't we probably all agree to that before we go and do all these other things, don't we?
I mean, that.
How are we
that-
paying for this?
And that information was, while it.
Because I got
it happened
questions
in-
about that.
Because it happened in an open meeting, that information was public. I mean, I guess we had to do it over again. Jason, you should have put on there bond debt for a court facility. It just said bond debt, so.
Yeah, but it would be clear.
Yeah, we'll make it clear. I mean, I'm with you 100% on that. I can't be more clear than I've been this evening, this past week. So, I just wanted to make sure that as a group, we sit up here in a public meeting, something that we have not done, and looked each other in the eye and said, are we gonna do this? And I think we have. I think we all understand each other. And so I'm good with going toward the way we're going, because I was seriously thinking we needed to really hit the brakes on this if there were doubts as to this, because going out and looking at property, putting options on property, hiring a GC, getting renderings, it just seemed like to me, I wouldn't do that in real life. I wouldn't go buy a house unless I knew, okay, I'm gonna go get pre-qualified for my mortgage first. I'm gonna know how I'm gonna pay for it. We ain't
Mr. Chairman,
doing that.
I would submit it like this because, as staff, I mean, for us, here and there for us, but if you want us to do this, we're just asking the board to authorize us to give us a few steps to make sure that we can deliver for the path that it seems like we're taking.
I know,
But-
because you're thinking,
All
okay,
I
this
can-
thing
all I
passes
can
in
think of
November.
when we have this conversation
How do you
is
get
that
vertical?
Splost it's 15 other things besides a building. And we desperately rely on that. So, more than if, so we've got to be able to, I think transparency, I think is an understatement. You've got to be able to show the story. We don't promote it, but we go, like when we did the T-Splosh, the city manager and I, we went to every single engagement we could go to with just information, and that would just be a gaping hole if we didn't have information. Because it would be difficult to run the county government or the city government without Splosh for all those other items, because we'd have to start making some serious decisions after that if we lost that funding source. So for me, just from an administrative function, we just want the ability to deliver if and when you say so, and this is what enables us.
I'm trying to take the
It's
other.
one option. It's one option too. I mean, the other option is while we're going through due diligence on potential sites, is you have to have an engineer or an architect analyze the data that we're going to be doing the due diligence on. Your geotech, all that. I mean, we can't
I thought
analyze
we
it.
already had that with our engineering. I mean,
And
time we get an
that's-
RFP out for a GC.
They can analyze that, but you still got to have. We could go out and just get an RFP for a design firm to provide just schematic. I mean, that's an option.
How long is this RFP gonna take to get out there and field? I mean, 30 days?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what's it gonna cost us?
Nothing.
Why are we debating?
Well,
Yeah, the other option that I just said would be costing you money.
That was gonna be my next question. Is that-
What-
So all you're asking
What
for.
we arguing about now?
Well, I think
What
we've
we
argued
arguing
about anything.
Well,
aren't we?
I'm gonna throw my two
We've
cents in
argued.
here if y'all won't listen to me. Nobody does anything for ever.
No, I mean to get the RFP out and get someone
I
selected.
don't care what you say about they're gonna do this gratis. It's in there somewhere, buddy.
Well,
If you're in business, you ain't giving away anything. John Deere can't sell me a tractor for cost.
Not stay in business.
That's right. So, you know,
Well, they-
nothing is gratis
Well,
in
here,
this world.
you know, and I'll say this, one of the great things that we have that other boards don't have,
His opinion.
he's done it before, and he does it every day in a different capacity. So we have these guys to lean on heavily to go through this process. So if you're telling me you need an RFP for a GC, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure that we were all on board, and this is something that we were going to pursue. We're on the road. Well, we know where we're going. We may be on separate paths to get there, but anyway. So you need a vote from the board tonight to authorize you to do an RFP for a GC?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, you have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion, it's free.
So the motion didn't say for free, so the motion was so
To authorize staff to pursue a GC for a CM at risk.
you'll bring that back to us and we'll vote on the engagement, right?
Yes, that's right.
So it doesn't matter,
So
okay?
you're authorizing.
Or not.
We're just
Yeah.
authorizing to get an RFP.
Yeah.
RFP, we're authorizing him to move forward with an RFP. Once that, okay, so, want to restate your motion?
I'll make a motion that we authorize staff to engage or to submit an RFP for GC services on the court facility.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, all right, have a motion made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Jones.
Commissioner Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Excuse me, Commissioner Wilder,
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda, discussion on the expiring 6-month moratorium on the acceptance of applications for permits, license, or inspections. Jason.
So, Mr. Chairman, as we're all aware, our 6-month moratorium will expire tonight. I'll keep this very brief. It is the recommendation of myself and the planning director not to ask you to renew it. And I'll go through my methodology here. It has been 6 months, and a couple of things have occurred. It's had almost no effect on the amount of applications we had, and I'll be clear about what those were. It prevented 2 people, and I think maybe even a third today, from applying for a alcohol license. So much fewer than we had anticipated. It has prevented 1 person from pursuing a special exception for potential storage units, which the board would have to authorize a special exception anyway. All these people have been wonderfully understanding and patient with us. And if I thought we were close to an adoption of a change, then the recommendation would be different. But I think I know it's Doug's belief and my belief that it would be unreasonable to ask people to wait probably the fall or winter time when we would actually have a meaningful revision done. We've engaged our consultants, and they've where are we with that? They've made a number of informational requests to the planning office. I see the information going back and forth. They'll be coming down here. We're trying to schedule a windshield survey because they want to come and look at some of the areas that we're trying to work on, whether that be gateway overlay corridors or whether that be the types of convenience stores we have in the county and other types of establishments. So, and we're trying to make sure that we keep Commissioner Ellington and Commissioner Jones in that loop. So that process is moving, but it's probably much longer than we could safely say to the very few people that have been impacted by this that will be done soon. So I would submit to you that it has caused some hardship, but it's really not been as it's not affected a whole lot of people. So I don't feel like in that amount of time where we can get this work done that it would be fair to ask for an extension.
The city, did they extend theirs?
I believe they did, yes.
And I got a question for you.
Mhm.
How do you know how many people it impacted? they know there's a moratorium, they ain't applying.
We've been keeping track of all the inquiries. Unless they just knew, unless they were just new from the, from media or some other source and didn't engage us, then we don't necessarily know.
And we just hired this firm because of this moratorium.
Mhm.
And now we're gonna lift it after we hired the firm and we ain't got nothing from it. And the city went ahead and redid their moratorium, so I don't know why you're asking us not to. It didn't solve anything. It didn't solve anything. We put the moratorium on to coincide with what the city did.
Right. So the number one reason that staff had required that or asked for that was because we were very concerned about the spillover, which there hasn't been any.
But everybody knew there was a moratorium.
So obviously, but we'll. It's fair. I mean, it's balancing, and it obviously is. And I would invite the county attorney to comment on it. But the longer we go, the harder it is to defend. Also, in my experience. So.
All right, let me ask you, attorney.
What are you asking?
Is it harder to defend?
The longer you allow something like this to go on, there's more precedent for it happening. So yes, it's harder to defend.
I don't know. I just, I talked to Jason, and I'm going to throw this one out at y'all. I called Jason the other day, when he sent out this thing about this window survey thing. I said, I want a city-county map, and I want dots on every single convenience store.
Mm-hmm.
Because
we're gonna get that.
If they're all right here, or right here, or right here, do we want to put another one in there? Do we want to put another one here? We have no idea where. Everybody knows where the stores are, but do you want 30 stores within a square mile, or how can we? We don't have a solution yet. So how can we turn it loose? We have no solution.
Don't you think you're? And I'm just playing devil's advocate, something I'm pretty damn good at. I'm sorry. Is it fair to the entrepreneurs? Is it fair to the people in the community who have plans, and we're putting them on hold, and we haven't produced a thing to provide them the guidance they need to do things the way we would, as a community, would envision them to do?
I understand that. I totally understand that. And if I was wanting to build me a liquor store, then I would be mad too, or a self-storage unit. But we hired this company to help us. We haven't even let them help us yet. Now we're just gonna.
But don't we have the means to help ourselves through the existing
Yes,
tools we have?
Yes, we should, but we still got these people that want to open up these 40-year-old concrete block buildings that have been sitting there for 20 years and throw a store in there. We still got them.
I guess my concern with that is we would, if we're going to wait on the company or the firm that we hired to address each of those ordinances, that's going to take a long time. And if we hold this over their heads until that gets done, I don't think we even have an idea of the time frame from them on, when we would get some feedback, do we?
Yeah, we do. We have a timeline. It's obviously it's going to take up the majority of the rest of the year based on the work order. So, and Mr. Chairman, if I may, excellent point that Commissioner Jones brings up. From the staff standpoint, we were under the impression that what was most concerning about some of the establishments was just the lack of overall standards. So the locations, we actually can control that in the current ordinance, not in the development code, but it's in the licensing for the alcohol licensing. So one of the considering factors that staff and the commission can apply to an application for a beer or wine license is proximity to other folks in the region. It's kind of vague, but it does specifically state that if that area is saturated and you deem it so, then you don't have to issue the license. So in that case, we could do it that way. But to Commissioner Jones' concern, the other items that we were concerned about and have been concerned about for 18 months would not be covered under that, like it would be under a moratorium of, because under that moratorium, a convenience store, you can't get even a building permit or any other permit to try to turn a block building into a convenience store, you know, or you can't apply for a rezoning for a convenience store under the moratorium. So it does not address those things. So and we will concede that for sure.
Okay. So we have a recommendation from the staff. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion that we go with the staff recommendation and not extend it.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to allow the moratorium to, the current moratorium to basically run its course and expire. Any further discussion? Ms. Jones?
Excuse me. Commissioner Watson?
Yes.
Commissioner Ellington?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
No.
Commissioner Wilder?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Yes. Okay, moving right along. We have an executive session planned for tonight for real estate. Is that the only other at all? Just real estate? Do we expect there to be any kind of action to be made after that? Any votes or anything?
That's up to y'all.
Okay, we don't know, so we'll go ahead and move forward with comments then.
Flat-footed. Mr. Chairman, I don't have that many comments. I did provide 3 via email, and I gave them to the clerk for the minutes, but I guess the most important one is that we did have our COVID-19 weekly community call. There were a few of us on there, and we decided to say goodbye to the call today. We got some great news from the hospital. I think the chairman had received a nice note from the hospital CEO, which I was also pleased to read. But so those calls will be suspended indefinitely. So I have deleted them from the reoccurring calendar. So if any of the other usual participants ask, they have been suspended. So, but they do have 3 COVID related inpatients in the hospital. I think the great thing that they communicated is that you can now at their clinics, and I believe even at the hospital, I had to clarify that, but you can come in off the street and get vaccinated now. So they're doing walk-in vaccinations, which I think is really, really good. Their testing positivity rate remains at or below 5%. One of the percentages I had heard that our Department of Public Health and our hospital system estimate that 80% of senior citizens in Upson County are fully vaccinated. So good news there. Moving on to the item 2, bad news. Not horrible news, but the cupola delivery for the courthouse roof restoration project was delayed a couple of weeks, so they're now saying August 9th for the delivery. All the other projects will be on time or actually early. They're about ready to finish up here in a few weeks. So the scaffolding will still come down once the tile is completed. And all the security fencing will go away. They're only going to have to do something temporarily for a couple days to install the cupola, so they won't have to rebuild the scaffolding and redo the fencing.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What was the main reason behind the delay?
Staffing issues with Campbellsville. They're running low on staff.
Have you got any pictures? I mean, we need to, if we can get some, put it out.
The last pictures I gotten were probably not worth circulating, but
It did look
yeah,
like a
well,
cupola?
it
was a
looked like
skeleton.
it looked like the frame of the cupola.
Yeah, the skeletons of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and then based on the feedback from the last work session, I did engage EMC Engineering via a task order to begin work on the new landscape plan for the courthouse once the construction on the roof is complete. So they're starting to work on that. And then last but not least, a lot of guidance has come out and about the American Rescue Plan. And what I have included in your report is recently published frequently asked questions from National Association of Counties. Had some really awesome information. I would highly encourage, as the board members are listening to the Braves game on the radio, break this thing out and look at it. I know many of you had ideas for projects, how we can accelerate some of our capital projects that are already on our list, and potentially do a couple of other pandemic readiness projects for the future. But this is a really wonderful summary about what the funds can be used for, what they can't be used for, anything related to third-party contracts with nonprofits. I mean, so all of our questions, I think, have been answered, and I think with this level of detail, we can probably start to build our strategy for these funds. And I think, and Mr. Chairman, if I may ask Alan, have we received our 50% yet?
Not yet. We had to make a correction to the form
Okay.
that we signed, and we missed dating in one area, so I resubmitted it
So-
yesterday.
Okay.
So I have a question regarding, how we're gonna account for this money. Are we gonna put this in some sort of restricted, is it going in restricted use fund? I mean, is it?
It is restricted revenue, yeah. So we have to account.
So-
we have to account for it almost like a grant.
So I know we
Yeah.
have, in our budget, we already have a restricted line item in there. Are we gonna create a separate restricted so that we know exactly, when you look at the line item, how much of this money has been spent and encumbered?
It
Or
would,
would
it would
we
operate
combine?
more like a SPOS fund, like a SPOS capital fund. So in other words, none of it would actually technically fall to fund balance.
So we'll have a separate, ARP
Mhm.
report like we do in our financials?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and that's the level of reporting requirement that we'll have to provide that level of detail to the.
Just wanted everybody to know, when we get it, where it's going. So,
Well, we're taking the approach that only the board will authorize the expenses. The staff won't be authorizing expenses out of those funds, so.
all right.
What, Alan?
I was just gonna say, we do have to create a separate bank account. All the funds we put, the funds should be directed to our reserve account. I learned yesterday on the call with ACCG, we have to create a separate account entirely, so that's
You just hit,
That's not difficult.
you just sparked another neuron. Where are we with banking?
The 4 finalists are presenting this week.
Okay.
Wednesday, we have 2 firms presenting Wednesday and 2 firms presenting Thursday.
Okay. So we're ready for prime time at our work session, or probably gonna need some more time after that, or?
Honestly, I think the next thing you'd see is a recommendation in a regular meeting with a presentation, yeah. The work session agenda, Mr. Chairman, is looking pretty hefty for next week.
It's looking what?
Hefty.
Hefty? We got those bags. Okay. All right. Ms. Jones, have anything?
I don't have anything.
Mr. English, have anything?
Executive session.
Okay. I called Alex yesterday at EMC. I guess the subs are having staffing issues. That seems to be the excuse for not getting some of this road resurfacing, the surface treatment going down. So hopefully we'll hear something on that here soon. I think Jason didn't mention it, but we had a little bit of a sidebar discussion about our pool. If you're out there, you're watching, and you need a job and you can swim, we're looking for lifeguards. You just got to get a little certification done, but we need lifeguards. If that pool is going to be open this year, we got to have lifeguards. So let's get that word out there. Sure.
I've never experienced anything like this before, Mr.
Right.
Chairman.
And-
I always thought that was the most fun job a high school person could have.
Yeah. Well, it's because we have so many jobs that they've all got real jobs now, and they can't go work at the swimming pool. Right. Okay. I mentioned it earlier during the prayer. It is Memorial Day. I'm just going to just remind everybody to remember what the purpose of Memorial Day is. It's for those that did not come home, not for those that did, but thank you anyway. Just remember those that paid the ultimate price so that we could be here doing what we're doing. Mention jobs again. I can tell you there are plenty of jobs in the county outside of the pool. The sheriff's got plenty of jobs that he needs to fill. In the jail, he's got deputy positions available. Never seen anything like this. And to piggyback a little bit on what Jason said earlier, 15 months ago when this COVID thing started, we said, how are we going to share information? We reached out and brought everybody to the table, school board, a couple others, but basically, the city and the county and Jason has taken the bull by the horns and coordinated his call every week, and it was invaluable. And to hear what the public health folks were doing, to hear what the hospital was doing, and my hat's off to all of them, and especially our health folks. I'm having a senior moment here.
Nikki Brooks,
Nikki and
Sherry Farr.
Sherry. I'm sorry if y'all are watching. I'm having a senior moment. It's been a long day. And to Jeff Tarrant. I mean, we have a tremendous staff in those organizations. And Jeff Tarrant, if you need anything, he's the man to call when it comes to that hospital. He's one of them. He's been a mainstay, I think, in our community. So, and that's really all I have.
I don't have anything.
All right, I got a couple things, and when I vote no on something, I like to be transparent on why I vote no. It was no reflection on the EMC bid on the company. I think they do a wonderful job for us, and we're lucky to have them. Just in the future, I like to see the numbers. I just like to see the numbers. When we're taking bids on something, I want to see all the bids. Because I need to be able to tell the public why I made my decision. And I need to be able to base it upon facts. And one of the facts is how much it cost. The second thing is, I just want to say, just to bring up, if we go back and pull the minutes from the work session when we were meeting with a consultant to work on the ordinance draft for the, if anybody here remembers, the question I had was, how long is this going to take? And I was told 90 days. Just throwing that out there. I point blank asked that question. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Next.
Mr. Jones.
Appreciate people that did show up today, and I hope that everybody enjoys watching us go round and around out here in the YouTube world. And the only other thing I got is I want us to remember that I brought up something, seems like yesterday, but it was probably a month or two ago. We need to work on this homestead exemption tax for these, for people. Haven't got much done on it yet, but we still need to remember, that we need to think about the homestead exemption.
Do you have any updates on that? I mean, I know he's been really busy, and my understanding is where we're at on that is we need some data.
Yeah, I do have a meeting with our chief appraiser tomorrow morning, so.
To discuss.
Homestead exemptions, to discuss surplus property and discuss the 2021 digest. So.
Okay. A lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the work session that's in that hefty bag you're going to lay on us?
Homestead exemptions is one of them.
Okay. Yeah. So,
Good.
yeah,
Move forward.
pick that can up.
Oh, and I want to throw a little bit about the Justice Center. It's something that's know, I don't want you to keep using the word kick the can down the road. But, and I'll find something else to start saying. But, you know, it's just, courthouse has been there since, what, 1908 or 1918, one of those. And population and the attitude of the people back then is a whole lot different than it is now. And the way that the judges and the lawyers and the sheriff's people and everything got to work, it's like working in this little bitty tiny room right here. You just can't imagine, because 99% of the people that live in this county have never had to experience going to court. It's the 1% that we got to look out for the rest of everybody else. And I'm a proponent for the courthouse. And you know, if we can make it happen, it's going to happen. And we'll see what happens. That's it.
Mr. Wilder.
I do have one thing I want to mention. It is Memorial Day weekend, and the Emancipation Proclamation Committee is planning some limited celebrations this weekend at the speaking ground in the park. There will be a speaker down there, starting at 12 o'clock, I believe. I think go from 12 to 2. There will not be a parade, and I just want to make sure I mention that anybody wants to come out and participate in the limited celebration they have for Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln Park Speaking Ground is a place to be Saturday, May 29 at 12 o'clock. Come and join. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. So we are in need of an executive session. I don't anticipate a vote on anything. Should we have a vote on anything? Does anybody know the reason we'll have anything to discuss or take action after this executive session? Or do we want to handcuff ourselves and say we're not, or leave it open?
I guess we can leave it open.
Yeah, I think the safest thing to do is go back and have a discussion.
Because I don't know everything we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so, all right. That sounds like the prudent thing to do then. So we need, for the public, we may have some more discussion or some action to take after a semi-brief executive session. So we'll do like we did last time. We just.
I have it where we can cut it and come back. We can schedule it
Okay,
and come
great,
back.
great. So is there a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we're going to executive session.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank y'all.
Hey guys, hold on a minute. This has been very informative to me. If we'd have had this place full, we'd have learned something tonight. I don't know how many people is looking at that YouTube, but I would figure not very many. But I appreciate every one of them.
Thank you. And Miss Fagan, I'm sorry we kept you so long last time you had to go.
I had to go. I said, my very first meeting back, and they kept me 2 hours.
We wanted 3 hours.
Well, I was.
Thanks, Alan. Oh my gosh, I was sitting
Or I'll get a couple days.
Anyway, we gotta-
I'll give you some.
So
We gotta go back live, and
we're, I think we're,
she's working on it. We live?
Ms. Jones, we live?
We're live.
Okay, so, we're back in open meeting. We have no other business.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.
I'll get something out tonight. What I'll do is I'll just get Chris and we'll give him that. Does anyone else, do you want to take anybody with?
Almost.